Welcome to Civilian Carry Radio. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and MASF, Modern American Shooting and Firearms. This podcast focuses on firearm safety, education, training, and mindset. I'm your host, Baraka James, president and founder of MASF. My co-host this evening is Alan Sams. Good evening, Alan. How are you?
Great. How's it going?
Doing well. Alan is our vice president of MASF. This views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network or their employees. Viewer discretion is advised, especially on live shows. Unfortunately, folks, tonight Carrie could not join us. She's sick with the flu, so any prayers and positive thoughts go out to Carrie. You were definitely missed. It's the first show she's ever missed, so it's definitely not the same without her. We have an outstanding guest tonight. We have Rachel Maloney.
Hey guys.
From Onsight Firearms Training joining us, and Alan, take it away.
Okay, Rachel, how about giving us a little background on yourself and how it is you got into the firearms instruction?
Sure. So I will say that I've been together with my husband together overall for 16 years now, and our first date was at a range, and it was the first time that I shot a handgun. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I grew up in a home where my mother did not want me to shoot until I was at least 18. So that meant I was no longer living in a house when I would be able to do that. So I took immediate advantage of that, and I waited all of 2 years, which, you know, did seem like a long time, but I loved it. We were still living in Brooklyn for a little while, which made access to firearms limited. It meant, you know, we had to go to PA to rent guns and with shooting there. And then I got a job up in the county that we currently live in, and it allowed us to go whole hog into getting into guns. And so my kind of firearms trajectory is a little bit different, I think. Maybe a little bit more common up in the Northeast, and certainly in like the tri-state area. And you know, I will say that there are a tremendous amount of our students coming through that have a similar story. They didn't have access to firearms or didn't have access to anything other than maybe a .22. So my kind of time with guns was, you know, shooting occasionally, and started to really color my time with handguns specifically with all the time that I had in the dojo. So I was definitely training a lot more with empty hand work before I went to a serious amount of work on handguns specifically. And it was many years ago now that I don't even remember which year. We got a certificate to go up to the 6 Hour Academy, and it was like, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're feeding this fantastic mindset and the idea of defending yourself into firearms. Like, it's not just a range time thing. I get it now. You know, this is fantastic. And I am a challenge oriented person. And it was a phenomenal way for me to just kind of build confidence on something like this. And I loved that everything was kind of difficult. And I loved that it meant a whole new learning platform for me. But I also realized the stark difference between, frankly, you know, what some of the basic courses are out there taught you versus what you really need to defend yourself. The skill sets that involve just getting out of the holster, for God's sakes, you know. And we sort of, my husband and I realized, Ben, there weren't a lot of people that were in our area that were training people. And it was a tremendous amount of people that associated skills with ownership. I bought my gun, it's mine now, I'm good to go. And you know, that doesn't work like that. You know, I've been on the phone with people who don't understand why they need a holster, you know. Like I own my gun. Why do I need a holster? I'm just gonna use it in the house. Cool. Okay. And so, you know, that's kind of the rambling version of how I got into to firearms. But I just took to it like water. I love it. I love it. It's been since 2001, which was when we had our first date, and then kind of 2006 on is when we really kind of pressed hard on our training.
Well, you must be doing something right, because we've already got 3 comments on the live chat from Jeremy Pink.
Jeremy Pink is awesome. He's a phenomenal student, a really great guy. Yeah,
hey, Rachel, if you scroll your mouse up to the top left-hand corner, there's a blue chat window.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, check that out. And here's a link so you can log in, but just click that and you can mute or you can see the live chat.
Okay,
but just mute that when you click it, otherwise it's going to echo like that. Alan, yours must not have been muted.
Oh, yeah.
No, mine was muted.
Oh, that's weird. You didn't echo.
But yeah, so Jeremy Pink, Turbo Sting 880, and Rob Koch. We got, you know, Jeremy Pink said if you're in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, PA, you need to get into class with OFT. These guys kick butt. And then Turbo Sting 880 second that, Rob Koch third that. So
they're all students of ours. Awesome guys, dedicated guys.
Cool.
You know, and you know, interested in learning, which is so important. That kind of learning mindset is something you got to hold on to. And all of them are phenomenal students.
Will Evers is Turbo Stang 880.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
But so first thing, how is it working with your husband? I mean, I can't imagine. I need my time at work.
Yes.
I love my wife, but I need my time at work.
Yeah. So I mean, let's see. I think that I'm a pretty independent person, and I would also say that I have a fairly good skill set at kind of switching on and switching off of certain environments, right? So for the two of us, when we're on the range, we are instructors, and that's our job. And we have to communicate to each other like that. And we have to drop whatever crap we may have, you know, as a married couple been together for that long. Sorry, like we were talking about earlier, you're gonna have your squabbles, right?
Oh yeah.
So we have to drop whether or not, you know, somebody knew the location of something, or you know, like, have you seen my, you know, whatever it is, that gets dropped, that gets shut off, and I think that we're both good enough at that it allows us to focus on the students, focus on class, focus on the safety, so that, you know, again, people are spending their hard-earned money to show up and rounds, like, you know, 500, 600 rounds.
Yep.
That's a lot of time that we're asking for people. It's so important for us that we deliver for them. And I think that everything else is secondary. So we're able to shelve our relationship as husband and wife for those 8 hours.
That's awesome.
And, you know, whatever. If we want to start that squabble right back up after everybody goes, we can do that.
It's funny because I'm self-employed myself, and we've always kept things kind of. We don't go crazy spending money and dying ourselves down in debt so that we can do these things that we enjoy. So it's hard to remember sometimes how much of an investment in time and money that people do put in when they do these things, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's like, it's very fair to say that, you know, we have talked about in recent times, like I'm still, you know, employed during the day. So I still have the 9 to 5, so that when we have, you know, back-to-back classes on Saturday and Sunday, we were doing this for a couple of years. And I was like, listen, I might need to take Sundays off, you know, and I talked to him like a partner at that point, like a business partner, you know, and I'm trying to be upfront about my energy levels, And again, you know, still holding at the pinnacle, at the apex of my goal set, to make sure that I'm on, you know, 11 on quality level for our students. So that was like, hey, you know, I might need to take some time on Sundays because I don't want to burn out. So I got to space some of this stuff out. And that's like, you know, that's a discussion that we have. So then it's like, okay, cool. I know long enough ahead of time that I can bring in somebody else for those days. Likewise, you know, every once in a while, I'll say to him, like, listen, if you don't have anything set for this weekend, that's our weekend where we're going to train, you know, by ourselves. You know, we have plenty of classes coming up that we are always training ourselves. But sometimes I'm just like, yo, this is the time to just be home.
Right.
So I try and make sure that I hold on to that. I don't know if he mentioned that when he was on. Sometimes I'm over here like, it's break time, guys. You know, it's break time for us too. You know, so we can still maintain and be fresh.
That's gotcha. Awesome. So why don't you tell the folks in the audience, besides your firearms background, you have a general self-defense and martial arts background.
Yeah.
And so the first part, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about that? And then the second part would be, how did you incorporate that into your firearms training?
So I will say, like, for me, the ability for me to get in and train in a dojo was far easier for me in the beginning than for me to be able to get to a range. That had more to do with facility access in our immediate area. The range that we had available to us was like only open on Thursdays and Fridays, and like sometimes we could get there on Thursdays, sometimes Fridays we were doing stuff, you know, it was just crazy. And so initially I could always get to the dojo like 3 days a week minimum, and definitely love every minute of it. And again, my kind of coming into firearms with more of I guess that's like a fighting or self-defense mindset from having to deal with physical confrontation initially. I think colors the way that I approach everything with guns. And what I'm trying to say is, I know what it feels like to be kind of thrown off your feet. I know what it feels like when you have that kind of, I believe it's like kama. It's that pressure between two people. Kami? No, I think that's head. But when you have pressure between two people and you have this space and you can only do a certain type of technique in this area, I mean, that just kind of, there's a tension, there's a stress inoculation with that. There's also a kind of getting in touch with that part of you that doesn't want to die, frankly. You know, I don't want to pass out. Nope, I'm not going to let you get your arms around my neck, you know, and kind of getting in touch with that, like that real animal response to self-defense. And I think taking that as my context and then plopping it into working with firearms, for me, just kind of makes it that much easier when I'm working on a drill to keep the context available to my brain. Like, understand what you're training here. You're not just hitting paper. Try and make sure that you visualize what's going on. You know, take anything in your life, whether it was a training aspect or something you saw on television, and put yourself there. But now put yourself there with a handgun. You know, and know what it feels like to have something in your hand, but also have a skill set with these guys or with that, and with your knees, and how do you move with your body, and learning how to move your body. So I do think that having the martial arts background made my contextual training a whole heck of a lot easier. Awesome. So, and it's just, it kind of goes without saying, if you're training with your handgun, you need to get training without your handgun.
Right.
It's so important, because you're not always going to have it. And if it gets away from you, you can't be like, well, I guess that's it, you know.
I give up. Time out.
Yeah.
I dropped my gun.
I gotta get that. You know? So.
It's funny. It seems like almost a natural progression. I mean, so many of the instructors that we've had on, especially more so the younger guys. And when I say younger, I mean, you know, up to 40 years old or in that area. Almost every one of them started out in martial arts.
Yeah.
You know, especially and it seems like the newer, the younger the person, the more likely it is that that's where it started at.
Yeah.
You know, down here where I am, you know, when I grew up, you had, I mean, we were 12 and had 22s that we were off, you know, by ourselves with. You know, I mean, we were trained in safety. That was, you know, safety and you know, marksmanship as far as being able to kill something. You know, not a person, but you know, guns were just something you were always around. But so do you and Ben, do you instruct together, and do you have like I could see a really awesome husband and wife giving a husband and wife teams, you know, working together as a team type class. Is that's something you guys are offering? Or
yeah, so it's a question that we have gotten more and more frequently, and you know, to answer that question succinctly, we are working on that curriculum, and you should expect to see it on our 2018 class list, and it's being written so that it accommodates non-shooters and shooting partners. I think that we have some phenomenal husbands and wives that shoot, and they come to classes and they train and they're interested, and they have a whole special set of things that they need to train. And then people who have like kids and partners who don't train have a whole set of considerations and communication lines that they have to train. And then just, you know, having that partner around guns being shot, you know, even sometimes just that, right? So there are a fair amount of guys that come to the range and they're like, yeah, you know, my wife's doing this other thing and this is my thing. And it's like, yes, but do you never travel together? You know, like do you carry that gun? Yes. Cool. Well, have you guys talked about who's responsible for what and who's going to move and how you're going to move? And how do you know that that person's standing when you lose sight of them? How important contact is, like physical contact in a situation when you maybe can't yell to that person, or there's so much chaos going on that even if you did yell, they may not hear you because of, you know, again, stress, loud, whatever's going on. So yes, we have been getting that request. We've heard that request. We've listened to it. So we're gonna bring it on for 2018. We're pretty excited for it. You know, and I think it's a real next step reality, because I think there's plenty of guys and gals that are great at training, right? And they're great at getting into classes. Some of them even get into classes together, which is awesome, but they are never working together. Right. But they live together. So we're missing this huge chunk of reality. And just like, you know, a lot of people don't realize how much work it takes to get a gun out of a holster cleanly. I think it's also fair to assume that working with another human being is also something that's worth training and getting into the nuances of.
I agree. And to add on to your point, when I was taking Steve Fisher's handgun shoot house up at Alliance, Ohio, it was all men. I know. I don't understand what's going on. That was weird. Did it go away?
Yep.
Okay. Up at Alliance, Ohio, one of the things that Steve pointed out to the whole class, it was almost like 23 men. He was like, where's your wives? He's like, you guys need to bring your wives up here. You guys are talking about clearing a house with a gun.
Yeah.
In a crisis situation. You think your wife and your kids, or just you and your wife and your dog, are going to stand still? Yeah. You guys need to learn to work together.
Right.
So he has an excellent curriculum for that called Partner Shoot House, where you can bring, you know, your friend, your wife, your whatever, your significant other, your best friend, whoever your roommate, and teaches tactics to clear the houses and stuff like that. So I definitely think what you're saying has 100% relevance, and more people need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think that there's and again, if people are looking for something like right now, Todd Rassa training, TRT training, has a great partners class as well. Any kind of protective shooting. There's a series of protective shooting force on force classes that are run by an instructor named Scott Ballard up at Sig Sauer Academy. And I will tell you, they're incredibly informative, especially, again, force on force, to be 100% clear. It's UTM training, non-lethal rounds. You get tagged. It's clear when you get tagged. It kind of hurts, which is a little bit of an understatement.
No joke.
I also don't want people to be fearful of getting tagged by a UTM and having that keep them out of the class. But it's a memory lump that'll teach you, what's going on. But things like that, if you have somebody in your life that either does or doesn't shoot, if they're with you all the time and you carry, you got to get it done. And there are fantastic instructors out there that offer this class. You're just going to have to dig a little bit more. But I wish people would. I love having fun too. And I love taking the crazy ninja classes too. But it's one of those things where I wish people would do that kind of training a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be diplomatic with that, but I do want to see more of that for the civilians out there, and frankly, even for law enforcement that have a significant other that, isn't on the job and they got to move around, that sort of thing.
One of the biggest things I think about.
Not you, Google. Google's causing this echo thing.
What's that?
It's not you, it's Google. Yes. For some reason, every time we talk.
Whenever I think about, like what you just said, working with somebody, if you're with somebody all the time, working with them, if you've ever, when we were kids, if you ever got jumped or something by 3 or 4 guys, there was never a plan with those guys, and it was a bigger cluster mess. Yeah. For those 3 or 4 guys, where if you had one guy, it would almost be worse because everybody's on top of everybody. Everybody's going this way. Everybody's trying to hit you at the same time. Yeah. So it's kind of that same thing.
Oh, yeah. It's a complete cyclone. So when I was I think it was 18, I was walking with a group of friends, 1, 2, 3. I think it was 3 or 4 of us, and it was very late at night. And this is when I was in college, and these 2 dudes were driving around just looking to get in a fight with somebody. And we had our defenses down. It was late. We were just oh yeah, this is great. This was a fun night. Let's get back to, our respective apartments and, dorms at that time. And so they kind of pulled up, and, you want to talk about missing all the cues, right? No one is on the street. And this is a lesson learned. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't have any serious bodily harm done to myself, but we were not paying attention. It was late at night. There were 4 of us. So there was disparity in number between us and these 2 guys. They pulled up, they parked, they got out of the car, they ran, and they jumped on the backs of the 2 guys that were in our group. And the one kid caught a knife down his face. And, it was crazy, and it was a cyclone. It was a complete cyclone. It was a cluster, and I'm what is going? That delay where you're
right.
Come on, this, everything is incredulous. You can't believe it, and it was the time distortion. It felt like forever before I finally switched on and said, where around me can I get help?
Right.
Because this is happening and I don't know what to do. And the only thing I could think to do was to see if there was anybody else that could help us. And there just happened to be a police officer at the intersection that was about maybe 100 feet away.
Okay, great.
And so I just took off running, ran up to the car, probably not a great idea for running at a cop, you know, but in that, and you want to think about like what law enforcement has to go through.
Oh yeah.
Girl in the middle of the night, hauling butt directly at the squad car, you know, and got up to the car, you know, and they were able to, you know, throw on the burps and cherries, and it scared the guys to get back in the vehicle, and then they tore off, and then they eventually caught them. So long story short is, you know, I made it out of that without any, you know, cuts, without any bruises, other than realizing that I had to do something about myself, and I couldn't be that person ever again. I couldn't be that person that didn't know what to do. Right. So, you know, I made that promise to myself that kind of mindset that like, oh God, what do I do? I can't do anything about this. If that cop wasn't there, I don't know what would happen, right? So I lucked out, but that was it. That was the end for me. I was like, I have to handle this.
Well, your story is actually a perfect segue into, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because usually I do this at the end of the show, and I know this echo finally went away. It looks like it comes on for like 5 seconds. Google redid their whole Hangout structure, and now it's like they're going to have to shake some bugs out. So folks, I apologize for the little bit of echo. But you know, what we try to do with our charity here at MASF is get people to realize that you and only you are responsible for your own safety and your own lives and protecting yourself and the lives of your loved ones. Yeah. And we've had so many people not want to take that responsibility because it's a scary thing. You know, they don't want to face that. They don't want to be able to do something. But then when we also explain to them their fallback, we've had so many law enforcement officers on our show that have been career law enforcement officers, 20 to some like Daryl Blokey, 30-something years, that have told them directly from their mouths that guess what? There's no way we can get to you on time. If we get there, we have to wait depending on what's going on. You have to take that responsibility yourself. Yeah. And that feeling that you described is what we want people to stop having to worry about, that helpless feeling, because if you have a plan of action and you've had training and you have the proper mindset, you don't have to worry about that. So what would you say? Again, we usually do this towards the end, but it was just too much of a perfect segue. I had to grab it now while I was fresh in your mind to get people to take that responsibility for themselves, Rachel.
So I think that's a great question, and I wrestle with it because I do think in some ways there is a level of me standing on the outside of someone who is not ready to take that responsibility for themselves and want to like grab their shoulders and say, you don't know what it's like. It's a terrible feeling. You never want to be there. And it is time consuming and somewhat of a life change to invest in that kind of training, whether it's, you know, like we said earlier, whether it's, you know, learning self-defense stuff like empty hand work, or, you know, graduating or starting right at firearms. It is something that I think is a constant wrestling point with trying to articulate to somebody how awful that feels. How awful that feels to see another human being launch themselves and latch on to a friend of yours. And it was like dark, and that person was wearing dark clothing, and could they ever look more like a real life monster? You know what I mean? And know that that person was inflicting serious bodily harm on somebody that you care about. And I don't want people to have to go through an experience like that before they realize. But sometimes I'm kind of at a loss in how to impress upon somebody how important it is that they get this training under their belt, so that they don't have that experience. And it's just a constant wrestling point. I think even for the dojo, you know, I mean, people are like, oh, I got to get in shape before I get in there, you know, and they think of it as like an exercise thing. And certainly it's sometimes couched like that, to just kind of get people to walk in. And for firearms classes, a lot of times fear of failure, fear of failing in front of your friends, fear of not performing the way that, you know, you may have lorded that you might be able to, or even that, you know, you just don't want to fail in front of strangers, is not something that should be an obstacle or a barrier from that training. I mean, it's just other people's opinions of you in that class should not matter as much as it should to defend yourself, or just have some semblance of a plan, some sort of touch base with that part of you, and know that that's the world that we live in. I mean, we don't live in a bubble. Sorry, you know. I mean, I've seen bad stuff happen in very nice areas. We live next to a town that I would consider fairly affluent, and a guy went after a woman. They were definitely in a relationship, and he decided that if the relationship is going to end, he's going to end her. And you know, he attempted to cut her throat at about 5:02 when a train of commuters came up, because she was trying to get on the train to go home. This is in front of a restaurant. Like, this is during the day. Sun's up.
You're crazy, don't care.
You know, crazy don't care. And really, and you know, it's like we get it. Like, we joke about that because it's funny to us, because we understand that the court that that's true, but it is hard to get through that idea that someone else is going to do it for me. Someone else has got this. I don't have that skill set. I'm gonna let the person who knows how to do this get that done. Well, guess what? That's got to be you. Sometimes that's just all that's available.
And what you said there is true. There was a guy who was stabbed, I believe it was last year on the metro here in DC, and some of the witness accounts, the guy was trying to fight back. All the people around watched. There was like 15 people. They just watched this poor guy get stabbed to death. Nobody intervened to help this guy.
Oh yeah, same with this woman.
And literally the whole time he's screaming out, yelling, you know, like, help me, help me, help me. And I mean, I couldn't even imagine those people are going to have to live with that the rest of their lives if they didn't intercede. But also, if he had been more prepared and put more of his energy in fighting back, it might have been a different deal. But he was, I think part of him losing strength was he was trying to reach out and rely on other people rather than focusing on defending himself. So
go ahead.
And that all goes to just like it was Steve Tarani was saying, you know, once it gets to that point where knives are coming out, you miss so much stuff. Yes. I mean, just the situational awareness and the getting your head out of your the sand is that goes so far, you know. I mean,
oh my God,
I was probably getting sized up. The guy was licking his chops, put his bib on, sharpened his knife. You know what I mean? All that happened before that.
Absolutely. Listen, and there are a lot of concepts that get thrown around, and you know, some of us who have been around it for a long time kind of go like, oh boy, that thing again. You know, say what you want, but I think for most people, introducing them to UDA and the idea of like, there are people that are approaching you like a lion will to a wildebeest. You are a prey, and they are going to take the time to orient themselves and pick you out. And if you can do, you know, and I've seen this even in like force on force classes. I've seen somebody just looking behind them with some frequency, making it impossible for OPFOR to get the drop on them. You know, I mean, because like when you're OPFOR, you can kind of get in touch with the idea that you're the bad guy. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, does anything bring clarity to your drive like having one goal? I'm going to rob this person. It's not like I have to follow these rules. You know, I can only pull my gun out in these situations. I can't defend property. I can only defend, you know. Good guys, we have to go through all of that. We have a lot of things that we have to balance. Bad guys don't have that. They have one goal. Right. And that clarity of mind allows them to be a lot more nimble in decision making. So, you know, if we can do that work, like you said, Steve's system with that pre-fence and book that he has, and that 90% advantage is not something that you even need to spend ammo on. That's just opening your eyes, you know, and being aware and noticing the guy in the puffy, huge coat in 90 degrees.
Right.
Like, that's, you know, practice that stuff. You can practice that just going out to lunch.
Yeah.
So.
And like William April said, you know, they look at it as, you've got something that's mine. You just happen to have it. I need to get it from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way they think.
You're a shelf.
Yeah.
You're a shelf. That's all you are. You're a shelf. I'm gonna go pick this off that shelf.
But a lot of regular law-abiding citizens don't want to see. They don't want to come to that thought process that people can think like that. It scares them, and they don't want to go into that headspace.
I don't. It's sort of weird that people are so scared in getting that visualization out that they feel like thinking about it will make them bad. I have to kind of work with people who are there in their mindset a little bit more and tease that out, because I don't know. It's like, it's almost like it's going to rub off on me. I'm going to become a bad person too if I think about that.
Seems like it.
You know, it's like, that's not the case. But again, you know, I'm constantly working to try and tease out what these barriers are, to make sure that people can kind of switch on and take this responsibility on their own shoulders.
Like Alan was saying about Dr. William April, we had a discussion on that specific show. How
phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
There was a criminal, and he was stealing this little girl's bike, and she was a little 9-year-old girl, and it was raining outside. And when the cops caught up to him, the first thing the cops asked him is, "Why did you assault the little girl?" And she was like an afterthought. He was just like, "It was raining outside, and I didn't want to get wet, so I took her bike because I didn't want to walk home in the rain." So he basically swatted her off the seat of her own bike like you would swat a gnat off of the bike. And that's right. Yeah. And people don't want to see that there's evil and people out there that are, you know, that are sociopaths and psychopaths that have no remorse and no, you know. That's why we try to get people to understand that you don't have to think like that. You don't have to be scared all the time. Just be prepared.
I think a lot of people just don't even think, it doesn't enter their mind. I mean, if you came from, you know, if you grew up in the suburbs and, you know, the worst thing that ever happened was, you know, 2 lacrosse boys getting a slap fight, you know, over something, you know what I mean?
Did you just learn about what sport you don't like?
I'm just throwing it out there.
Alan hates lacrosse.
But yeah, I mean, there's people that it doesn't enter their mind to even think about those things. I think that's as much as prevalent as not wanting to think about it.
And I think that and this is kind of like the difficult element where you don't want anybody to have a bad time in life. You know, you don't want them to learn through failure in that sense. You don't want them to have to. It's kind of like putting the stop sign up after the crash happens. You don't want them to have to get into that crash for them to realize the stop sign has to go up. So it's always trying to find what will it take instead of something awful happening. But I frequently find that, unfortunately, sometimes the people that are really able to get in touch with that defensive element in their brain and in their body have gone through something, and they use that as a touchstone. And it sucks, but you know, sometimes that's a great turning point, and people will turn that into a positive.
So Rachel, I wanted to ask you something. First of all, I hope you don't mind sharing your height, just because the reason why it has relevance is My wife is 5'4", 115 pounds. My daughters are very petite, and this is where I wanted you to give some of your own experience. Me as a father, having a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old daughter, for me to do the best job that I can as a father, I want them to learn how to defend themselves empty-handed, with a blade, and with all forms of firearms. And I want them to have the right mindset.
Yeah.
So for people who are out there that don't necessarily want to train with firearms, because we've come across a few, what are some of the other things that you might suggest? Because, you know, sometimes they want to do tasers, pepper, a knife, you know, can you delve into that, something like an advantage about size?
Okay. So I am 5'3", and I think that when you're small, it's never far away that you're small. You know, I remember when I was growing up, I could never reach the top shelf with where the mugs were, right? And I remember my mother used to tell me, well, you know, when you grow up, you'll be tall enough to reach that shelf. Well, it never happened. I'm still climbing on all kinds of things. There's a bevy of memes out there about short girls and all of the climbing that we have to do. In fact, I was just getting something out of the Thule in the top of Ben's truck, and I was like, you're constantly faced with the idea that you just have to become taller, or sometimes you have to become bigger. You know, and like the animal kingdom, maybe you have to somehow adopt a larger presence than you have. And while that doesn't mean necessarily heading down to the local Golden Corral and, you know, making yourself physically bigger, it may mean body posture. I mean, we're talking about stuff that you don't even have to get into a location for, like a specialized location, like either a dojo or, you know, work with an instructor. So even at the outset, kind of life principles are, you know, getting into a speaking class, you know, learning how to present yourself in front of people, getting comfortable with that kind of, I still feel as though it's almost like a conflict, right? So learning how to assert yourself verbally, learning how to speak with volume when you need it, learning how to stand tall and move your body. You know, that can start with just like gymnastics, right? Just learning how to be confident as a human will help inform all of the rest of the training that you have. So, you know, if you walk into it a meek person, understand that some of the things that you may need to train are to no longer be a meek person, and adopt that kind of sense of self. And as far as non-lethal options and how that feeds into that, again, like learning how to move your body, you can't ever fail with that. You know, and kind of building those neuro pathways to be more, you know, kind of articulate with your body, will help with everything else. You know, listen, I know you train a lot, Barack. I know you're in the gym all the time, you know, and it's I think, you know, it's a benefit to everything else that you do when you feel strong.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's important. You know, it doesn't mean necessarily you got to go to a gym, but it means you got to move your body. But it kind of helps with everything else. It doesn't kind of, it does. But I will say that learning how to move your body as a small person is that much more important. You know, I think kind of understanding what your limitations are as well, like knowing what you're good at, right? So if I remember we had a guy that was like 6'6" and kind of shaped like a refrigerator in the dojo. And he's a huge dude, right? So if I had to spar him, I knew that my best ranges were either way, way outside of his legs and his reach, or real, real close. And if I really had to get, you know, down and dirty in kind of a fight situation, I'm not punching the dude. What is my punch going to do for him? I'm going for the eyes. I'm going for the throat. You know, I'm dealing with things that you can't train away. You can't train away your neck for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Doesn't matter how big or small you are. You know, if you can't see or something affects your vision, a lot of times we as human beings just kind of go like, oh my God, I have to get my vision back. It's a huge part of the way that, you know, we deal with things under stress. So as far as, you know, being small and what do you train, I would say, you know, a small person knows they're small. It is something you're constantly faced with, and you just have to embrace it. You have to know you're small. It's okay. You know, it's like, I will fit into smaller places. I have my own set of advantages. But if I try and focus on the fact that I'm not big, on the sort of negative of it, it's not going to help me. You know, like it's not going to work. I can't go punch for punch with the 6'6" dude. It's just not going to work. So I have to work what I can do. And if I don't know that answer, I go to somebody more knowledgeable.
My wife's 4'10".
Nice.
But
4'10's a great idea.
Yeah, but I'll tell you
4'10's a great route too, right?
She doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Especially when she was a mother.
Yeah.
When stuff would happen, I remember this poor girl had the misfortune of rear-ending us.
Yeah.
And it was, our daughter was like, I don't know, maybe she was a year old.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had no idea she was 4'10". She got out and she was getting ready to whoop some girl that was about a foot and a half taller than her.
Yeah, absolutely, mama bear. And that's the thing. Like you can't be like, well, I'm small, so I can't get out and assert myself in any way. You can't do that. I mean, that's giving up.
Yeah, I was small and
you deal with it.
I was small when I was in junior high school, and what that meant to me was I can't get hit before anybody else, so I'm going to be the first one to hit somebody.
Bingo.
You made a plan. You made a plan. You didn't ignore it. You made a plan.
Yep.
And that's kind of.
I wasn't into the yapping back and forth. I loved guys that would yap their mouth because that's the one you go right in on it.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. And you know, all I can say is you got to make a plan with what you're comfortable with, you know, and things that you like. And I think I will say, you know, martial arts in general, especially like Okinawan style, Japanese, and then of course BJJ, you know, has exploded, you know, for great reasons. Also in part and parcel, it's almost like what happened with Taekwondo. Make sure you find a great dojo, right. A real dojo, and a dojo that's not just going to take you for a ride as far as like your money goes. But those types of arts are great things to learn if you're small too, because they are at their original source based off of not just muscling. That's not boxing.
Right.
That's using your body and technique. So, you know, that's another reason why I really enjoy martial arts and took to it, because it wasn't just about being huge. It was about using what you had and learning what worked for you.
And to Alan and his wife's credit, they work out Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. They get up at like 4 a.m. and work out at home together. They do HIIT workouts, like killer ones.
I'm sorry, I got nothing for people who are not working out. I wish I could tell you something different. For the people out there, they're like, oh, you know, I don't like working out. Find something that will.
I absolutely freaking hate it. It's not fun. Everybody tells me it's fun.
I know, right? Who are these people, right?
It sucks.
I love it. Oh, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's wrong.
It sucks. Well, and I think that, you know, I definitely went through a few gym memberships. I mean, not to belabor this, but I went through a few gym memberships, and I was bored out of my mind with certain things, and so I said, listen, I got to find something else that works for me.
Right.
And like the gym that I go to, it's reasonable rates. I'm not, you know, paying through the nose, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to a gym. I mean, you can find something to do in your own house, you know. So I think it's like the prison gym, you know, you got it in your your garage, and for lack of a better term, it's kind of a slang term, but yeah, find some, you know, I mean, I think T-Max is on there moving freaking
logs
blocks around, you know. I mean, geez, like move sandbags around. You got concrete bags you got to move and mix. Like, there's plenty of stuff, but move your body. you know, please God, move your body.
Are there any, I know you do some women only classes and stuff like that. Are there like psychological hurdles that women have to get over to go to their first class that guys don't? We were talking before. Guys only have two. That's ego and ego. The first ego is getting over the fact that they need it. You know, I know how to shoot. I've been shooting for years. I grew up. That was me. That was me before I took my first class. And then there's guys that, like you were saying, don't want to fail in front of people, and they don't understand. Not to get off track, but you were talking about, you know, getting into class and these things. I don't think people understand how accepting this training community is, and how not
videos look like everybody knows what they're doing.
It's
not true.
And you see these personalities, you know, like, you know, Steve Fisher or John Murphy. You hear them talk, you see them on a video, and you see them yelling or hollering.
Yeah.
It's taken out of context.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about. It's not like, do it. Oh, you didn't do it right. You know, it's not that. Yeah. But back to the point, is there something that women go through that's to get into that first class that's unlike what the guys are? Is it just the same thing?
Well, I mean, there's definitely lots of the same thing going on there. You know, just as it's intimidating to kind of see anybody like, you know, both of those instructors, I hesitate to use this, are also your biggest cheerleaders. You know, right. Fisher and Murphy are there. They want to see you succeed.
Right.
That's all they're doing. And they're awesome at it. And they've got years of experience of working with a myriad of people that have a myriad of goals for their own career with firearms. But I think there's also like this, you know, culture somewhat of this, like, you know, you're weak, you know, and everybody's like, oh, I'm never going to use a loader. Like, I'm going to use a loader because I don't want my thumbs sore from loading rounds. I want my hands for shooting. Like, I don't care, you know, so, but there is an element of that that's intimidating. And I think it's extra intimidating sometimes for women on top of that, because I think there's definitely a concern that they might be looked at as like just not having any skill set, and so maybe they feel like, you know, the instructor might feel like they're not worth it, or they're going to get brushed off, or they're going to get talked to like a child, and, you know, coddled and not really challenged because somebody feels like they, you know, need to make this kind of like fluffy little location for their lady brain to work on the target. And, you know, don't worry about hitting the head. I know that's scary. You know, I mean, I can't speak for every female out there, but I also think that there's like this element of when you fail, you don't want to be looked at as like, if a woman makes a poor decision in a car, sometimes it's all women drivers instead of just that woman.
It's not.
So,
no, I'm just
kidding.
You know
what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, oh, Jesus, women drivers. Right? But so they don't want to make a mistake in a class because there's this pressure of like, oh man, I'm the only lady here. If I
never thought about that. I really didn't.
You know, are they going to look at me as the rep?
Right.
You know, is it going to be like, I dropped that shot? Well, you know, or I had some trouble with this drill and I was so frustrated that my body responded with tears. Is everybody going to think that like that's what ladies do now? Like, I'm crying, you know? I mean, so there's this kind of element of like, do I represent everybody? I don't know. And are they going to talk to me like a normal person, or am I going to get like handled with kid gloves? And you know, my response to that is always like, absolutely not. All phenomenal, awesome instructors that are out there that have been, for the most part, every name that you hear on everybody's mouth do not treat people like that.
Right.
And your fear is unfounded. And if somebody is treating you like that, their name is not going to be on the tips of people's tongues.
Right.
And if anybody treats you like that in class, male or female, it's time to go, you know, or learn what you don't want to come back for.
Right.
But I get that there's this trepidation of you know, of those things going on. And we don't do a lot of women's only classes. And that's part and parcel because I want to see women come in and have their appetite whet with firearms. And if that's what it takes to get them to come into class, then cool. I'm there for you. I'm here to make that happen. But I want to see you succeed in all environments. And maybe the stress that you're feeling by going into a class with men as well might be good to inform your shooting with, right?
Right.
So I remember when I was shooting in groups of people, I also had that like fear of failure. Like, man, I don't want to suck. You know, I mean, who wants to suck?
Right.
Like, that's no fun. You want to be awesome. But I think it's always important to remind people that you are not in a competition when you're training. You're there to learn. And when you're learning something, it means you don't know it, which means you're not going to perform it perfectly. You're just being taught the technique. It's your job to then go and practice that. You don't use training classes to practice. You use training classes to learn, which means you're not always going to be phenomenal at something that you've just learned. And like you said, the environment of other students in that class and the instructor should always be fostering of the understanding that you're just learning this technique. You're not going to perform it flawlessly. You know, not after one, not after 4 reps. We're all there to learn. So
it's an awesome place to screw up. I mean, that's where
absolutely, you know, that's where you do it.
Yeah, that's where I like to do my screwing up. Whenever I go to a class, one of the first things I do is, if the instructor is teaching something that is not how I do it, I always try their way first.
Yeah.
You know, to see if, I mean, I've had it change. And the other thing is always push, like when you're doing drills or something, always push so that when you go past your headlights and you mess up, you got that other set of eyes there telling you why you did it. You know what I mean? Instead of me trying to figure out by myself, okay, why did that happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's an absolute, you're 100% right on having that other set of eyes so that you can learn from that.
Right.
But I mean, you know, we learned to walk, and then we learned to run, and then, you know, we got the walking down enough that we could put on a different pair of shoes and walk in those. I mean, you couldn't just get up and run in sneakers. You know, it's important to realize that, you know, there was somebody there to help you back up. Tell you, hey, you got to slow down. You don't quite have this yet. You slow down, you figure it out, then you step it up. And that's how we learn. And to expect anything other from ourselves is just going to drag us down in that whole process.
Right. And that's probably one of the biggest disadvantage guys have, is we're always competing.
That's right.
Against each other.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Women do it too.
Yeah. But that's one thing.
But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. 100%. Yeah.
We actually talked about this last weekend. So last weekend, our great industry partners, Mike Green, who owns Green Ops, and his wife Pascal came, and they donated and did a charity shoot for 6 ladies. They donated the class and the time for these ladies who particularly just donated the 6 spots, because, you know, some of these classes are very expensive, and some of these people are single moms and things, and we really appreciate what they did for us. But when we were talking, we were talking at the beginning of the class about the difference between all males and ladies classes. You guys both hit on both points. One of the things that was discussed is that specifically when it's a mixed blend class, every guy comes in there with an ego. And like Alan said, it's always a competition. I mean, bottom line, every guy's like, oh, he did well, I'm going to do better. And then with women, like, they are so much more supportive. Like one of the ladies, she was having a very, very tough time. She finally got it. The light bulb went off in her head, and the whole class clapped. You won't see that in a men's class. I'm just being honest, because they're going to be like, "Oh, that sucked. I'm going to still do better than you," because the competition aspect.
There's a lot of communication between students, and a lot of like, "Hey, what were you having trouble on? Were you having trouble on this too?" And a lot of discussion of where the challenge was, and how maybe one of them overcame it. But the frankness of what someone was challenged with, like, "I had a lot of trouble with this," is not often something you
dude
hear.
will be like, "Oh, the wind blew a piece of dust in my eye. I'll do better next time."
Yeah. So there are definitely 100% different challenges. But yes, you're 100% right. There's a lot more discussion with, "Hey, what did you find like really hard? What works for you in that?" And the kind of frankness with which that's discussed is not always there in some of those classes that are not majority women. So
I like a class with relays, kind of, for that, like to have two relays, because going back to that second set of eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes watching somebody screw up the way you screwed up and seeing what happens, especially if you're watching the target and you say, "That's what I was doing." And then you start watching the guy and then you pick it up. You know what I mean?
So you touched on two things that I think is like something we highlight. One of them, like when you're talking about looking at the target, if you're new to training, I see this with new students all the time.
Watching again.
Everybody's looking at the target and they're missing what the person's, like, somebody's demoing it, instructor, anybody, right? And they're steering, they're like burning holes into that target. And we're always standing there going like, "Guys, you got to look at the person shooting. The holes will be there at the end of the drill." We're not talking about calling shots right now. So big kind of tip for people who are kind of getting into training. You need to look at the person shooting, and then you can review the target. But the second thing is, as you become more frequent a student, it's important to start to adopt that kind of eagle-eyed view, that secondary set of eyes, stepping back, observing and watching other shooters. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a better shooter than you. It may mean like a newer shooter, and starting to diagnose them, because I think that one of the ways that we learn, obviously, is visual. But I also think that, teaching a concept, even if it's just to your buddy who's in if you're in like A string and B strings up shooting, and you get to talk to them and say like, "Hey, I saw you, jerking the trigger really hard." You don't have to be like world-class instructor to start to see that stuff. And looking for that stuff helps you as a shooter as well. Chris Fry, who I know Ben talked about before, has run a number of these doubled up relays. And you got a buddy helping you out and talking you through some of the things that you work on, and when you have trouble with something, and having students take that kind of approach can open up a whole new world for somebody in their learning. So very important.
You never even know how much you know until you go to explain it to somebody, and you come out with all this stuff. You're like, "Shh, I know this stuff." Wow. But so I guess we're at the end here, but I wanted to give you a chance to let people know, where you're traveling to, where do you go, and how people can get a hold of you, and all that good stuff.
So yeah, I am like notoriously bad with knowing the schedule, so I'm actually just pulling up our website. I am like forever looking for what our next class is, even though I'm the person that puts them up on the website. But so primarily our home range is right here in Westchester, New York, and unfortunately with New York laws, unless you're law enforcement, if you don't live here, you can't bring your handgun in. We have no non-resident. So for our New Yorkers, you can always find us on the range, on the police ranges down at Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain Sportsman Center in Cortland Manor, New York. And so we are frequently there. That's our kind of base. And for a full list of classes, you can go to oftllc.us. That's our website. And so we have some classes coming up in South Carolina. Sometimes we're in Virginia, and sometimes we're in New Hampshire. And we are primarily on the East Coast, and sometimes we're also in Pittsburgh. In fact, I just have on the docket to put up a class. I think it's the 23rd. It's like right before Christmas. We had a bunch of shooters out there, and they're like, yeah, what we love to do for Christmas is get out and shoot. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
In Pittsburgh?
Yeah, in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a great crew out there. I know, it's so awesome. I was like, this is awesome. We're thinking alike here. So Ben was just out there. I unfortunately couldn't make it out, but yeah. And so everybody was like, no, we're down. Let's shoot like right before Christmas. This sounds fantastic. And more power to them. You know, training in the cold sucks, but cold happens. You can't ignore it. But yeah, so, you know, as far as like our upcoming classes, you know, our website is the best place to go to for all of that. We organize it by state as well. So if you're in a particular location, you want to kind of jump to that, you can do so. But you know, this weekend we have a guest instructor coming in, Jake from Raven Firearms Training. Great company up in way up there in like Lancaster, New Hampshire. Wow. So yeah, like it's Canada. But great people. That's another husband and wife duo, both Marines, retired, and fantastic instructors. So we're excited to have them here this weekend. But yeah, so that full list is on our website.
Cool.
All right, thank you. So like I said, I jumped a little ahead earlier, but still just want to give you an opportunity for anyone who possibly listened to the show tonight that is a little on the fence still, Rachel, that you know, wants to explore the idea of getting out to the range, but they're still sitting there thinking, all right, now that I heard Rachel and I can understand where she's coming from, I really want to get out there. What's the final little push you'd give them to say, hey, I need to step up and be responsible to be able to take care of myself in a situation?
So, yeah, it's the eternal question, right? So I would say, if you ask yourself, what has been the biggest obstacle? Whether it's I'm too old, I'm not in shape, I don't have a gun, I don't know what to do with my fists, I'm scared of knives, I'm scared of guns. Reach out and talk to your friends that do this, because they're familiar voices to you, right? So they're people that you can trust. They're not trying to, I don't think people perceive their friends as trying to sell them something. You know, and I think that if you have a buddy that does a lot of this, they're more than likely going to be very supportive. Like, I will drive you to the range. Some like really special, awesome friends might, you know, lend you holsters, might help pay for some ammo. You know, the training community and gun community are fantastic people. And I can't tell you how many stories I've heard from people that are like, yeah, I had this buddy and he like lent me his gun and it was amazing, et cetera, et cetera. You know, that will happen. That is a reality. When you ask and you reach out, you will get a positive answer. And maybe you don't have anybody in your friend circle that you can ask that question to or pose those questions to. So my suggestion would be to reach out to, you know, those trainers that that you kind of see everywhere and start to collect an information gather, because it doesn't cost anything to ask a question. And that, I hope, will start the ball rolling. and will help start to tear down a lot of those excuses. But at the end of the day, you kind of gotta get off your rear end and just do it, and be willing to put yourself out there. And you know, like we said before, sometimes you need to kind of buck up and say like, all right, I might not be so great at this in front of other people, but at least I stepped foot in this location.
Mm-hmm.
Well said, Rachel.
You gotta take solace in that. You showed up. If you do nothing but show up, you've already made a huge step in progress in that whole thing. So,
yeah, most of those instructors will get you squared away if you're missing something.
Yeah,
they got
they
got bags of stuff and extra things, and they'll get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and if cost is a situation, right? You know, look for I think Jimmy at F3, and I think it might have been Green Ops, had a dry fire class.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
no
F3 put it on there. I mean, Green Ops put it on there.
Yeah. So we have them. We don't have them frequently. I'll try and make this short. I know it's the end of the show. But you know, there are ways to make this happen. Because you have an obstacle doesn't mean you have to suffer that alone. That, again, still reach out to people who have more experience and ask them, how do I get around this obstacle? You know, and every one of us will work to circumvent that so that you can get yourself started. So, you know, there are options. Just reach out and talk to us.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, please subscribe and leave your feedback by commenting at the bottom of our YouTube video here. Please go ahead and hit the subscription button. And every time we have a great show like this, you'll be alerted every time we go live, which is every Wednesday. You can go to our website over on masf.co. Also there, you can find both in the show description here under the YouTube link, and as well as on our website, our link to iTunes, where you can download all of our podcasts. Please leave us a good review. You can contribute to the show by clicking through our Amazon Smile link. Just next time you shop on Amazon, a small portion goes to our charity. You can also become a member or just choose to donate to our charity if you like and agree with some of the things we're doing. All of the links to on-site firearms training are in the show description under the details of this YouTube. The link to their Facebook page, their Instagram page, their Twitter account, as well as their main webpage that has all their classes listed. And we'd like you to join us next week live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on September the 13th, where we will have Kelly D. Venden of Criterion Tactical joining us.
Yes, Kelly is awesome.
We're excited to have him, and he was actually a referral from you guys, from your husband specifically. So
phenomenal instructor.
We're really stoked to have him on. So thank you.
Yeah.
Alan, you got any final thoughts tonight?
No, I just I mean, I love everything we went through. I think it's awesome. I think it's a shame that y'all got to do this in a communist state, where, you know, we don't get to come up and participate. But, you know, hey,
I know.
It's like, you know what? It's like when I go. It's like when I go to church with my friends that are Catholic, because I'm not Catholic. I don't get to take communion. You know.
Yeah.
That's funny, Alan. I like that. I'll give it to you.
We're out here fighting the good fight. You know, last hang on.
That's right. You get to starve. We get to eat. You get to starve. No problem.
We're white knuckling it here in New York.
Yeah. Hey, Rachel, any final thoughts to leave everybody with tonight?
Boy, this is the part where I you know, make some sort of astute quote happen, right? So I just want to say that I'm going to congratulate myself for doing real well at not cursing this entire time. So
yes, thank you.
No, but I mean, you know, just like you mentioned, you know, MASF and organizations out there exist so that you can take this responsibility on. It's not a burden, and it's not about being scared. It's about empowering yourself and owning that, and really knowing, like, you can do this. You got this. You don't have to be a ninja to get it done. And there are people out there that will hold you up and will make this happen for you. And it is a good community, and it is a community that you will meet friends for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
You know, if for no other reason than just for the people. We're all here for you, and we all want to see everybody, you know, get up and get out of bed the next day. You know, I mean, I think that's a pretty cool crew to have around. Right. So, you know, whatever those obstacles are, stow them and get in communication with people and get out there and make it happen. But it's yours. You got to do it.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. We know you worked all day and you're tired and it's late. And so I just wanted to thank you and Alan. Yeah, I see. So we wanted to thank you, Rachel, so much for gracing us. You're our second female instructor we've ever had on the show tonight. And we're hoping that this will encourage other women to get out there, because we definitely want to see more women step it up in the community. Please do. Alan, thank you so much for your time, brother, as always.
No problem. Thank you for coming out, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
And Carrie, we know you're out there with the flu. Please rest up, heal up, feel better. We missed you, and the rapid fire questions we'll have to get Rachel next time, because we're going to have Rachel, we're going to have you and your husband come back on in a few weeks together at the same time, so we can have the whole company represented. So just letting you know, we're going to be hitting you up again soon to come back on in probably a few weeks or months. Cool. So thank you so much for your time. Folks, thank you so much for listening to us. And remember, you and only you are responsible for your own safety. Please go out there, get training, get properly educated, know the proper mindset. If you have to go to the gun, you probably, like Alan was saying earlier, like Mr. Steve Tarani said in the pre-fence, you've already missed a lot. And you don't need to, we're not just preaching, we're preaching education, safety, and mindset. Mindset is the first thing.
Mindset. I mean, that's right. It's just an hour and a half of mindset.
Exactly. And more people are starting, I think, now to understand that, Rachel, is mindset is exactly the thing that drives it. If you've got the right mindset, and then you have the training and the education, the safety comes in every aspect. And I think more and more people are getting it now. Before, I think people just thought it was just go to the gun, like the gun was a talisman, to ward off evil.
Yeah.
Somebody should have a seminar on that, like in November or something.
Yes, folks, go to our website. For you that are local, we are actually having a seminar on November 4th, Saturday. I actually need to talk off air to see. I was going to actually see about inviting you guys down, Rachel, you and Ben, to speak. But we'll check your date, and we'll check. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. See if you guys are open Saturday, November 4th. I might want to have you guys come down and speak at our seminar. We have a seminar going. It's a mindset and EDC conference seminar.
Cool.
So check your books. All right, folks. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. You guys have a good night. God bless. Be safe.